She woke slowly, not to the comfort of home, but to silence so complete it felt artificial. Lena Moore's first breath caught painfully in her chest. The air smelled clean, expensive. Not dust and old brick. Not Harbor Heights. Beneath her fingertips was fabric impossibly smooth, cool against overheated skin. Silk sheets. Her eyelids fluttered open. Light spilled softly across a ceiling too high, too perfect. No cracks, no water stains, no peeling paint. Her pulse spiked instantly. This was not her apartment. Pain followed the realization, sharp, insistent. Her ribs screamed when she tried to move. A dull throb pulsed behind her eyes. She swallowed and tasted metal. Bandages. She turned her head slightly and saw them, neatly wrapped around her shoulder, medical grade. Expertly done. Someone had cleaned her wounds. Someone had decided she would live. Fragments crashed into her mind without warning. Concrete slick with oil. Voices echoing in the underground garage. A man begging. A gunshot so loud it split the air in half. Blood spreading where no blood should ever be. Lena gasped and tried to sit up. Her body refused. Panic surged, hot and suffocating. She scanned the room, floor to ceiling windows framed by heavy curtains. A leather chair placed deliberately near the bed. A low table holding water, medication. A phone she instinctively reached for and realized it wasn't hers. No notifications, no signal, no escape. This place was beautiful, controlled, designed, a safe house. The thought chilled her more than the pain. Someone powerful had brought her here. Someone careful enough to erase every trace of chaos. Someone who didn't rush, didn't panic. Someone who owned silence. Her breathing quickened. She tried to remember the last thing she saw clearly. A tall figure stepping forward as others lowered their weapons. Men who bowed, not out of fear, but obedience. And a familiar voice she hadn't recognized until it was too late. Take her upstairs, her stomach twisted. No, that couldn't be right. Lena squeezed her eyes shut just as the door behind her opened. Quietly, deliberately. An instinct told her the man walking in was the reason she was still alive, and the reason she might never leave. The door didn't creak, it didn't slam, it opened with the quiet confidence of someone who never worried about being overheard. Lena felt his presence before she saw him, pressure in the room, the air subtly shifting. Her pulse betrayed her, racing faster with every measured footstep that drew closer. Then Adrian Russo stepped into view, impeccably dressed, dark slacks, crisp white shirt, no tie, no jacket. As if this were just another evening at home, as if there weren't armed men somewhere beyond these walls. As if she hadn't seen him standing over a dead body hours ago. He stopped beside the bed and looked down at her, not cold, not cruel. Controlled. You shouldn't move yet, he said calmly. You fractured 2 ribs. His voice. That same low, steady tone she'd heard through the apartment walls. When he spoke on the phone late at night. The voice she'd teased, flirted with, trusted. Lena's throat tightened. You, she whispered. Adrian poured water into a glass with unhurried precision, as though her world hadn't shattered overnight. He held it to her lips when she hesitated. Drink, he said, not a request. She did, because fear had stolen her defiance, because her body needed it, because some instinct deep inside her knew resistance would be pointless right now. How did I get here, she asked once she could breathe properly again. You were in the wrong place, Adrian replied. At the wrong time. That's not an answer, a pause. The men downstairs would have killed you, he continued. I didn't allow that. Her chest tightened. Didn't allow. You're safe here, he added. Lena laughed weakly, the sound brittle. Safe? Her eyes searched his face, desperate for cracks. You're the one who... I know what you saw, he cut in, voice still even, but harder now. And I know what you're thinking. He met her gaze fully for the first time. There was no neighbor left in his eyes. Only power. You're alive because I decided you would be, Adrian said quietly. And you will remain alive, as long as you listen to me. Fear and anger tangled violently in her chest. You don't get to decide that. His expression softened, just slightly, enough to be dangerous. For now, he said, I do. He straightened, placing the glass back on the table. The distance he created felt intentional. Controlled restraint. "You'll stay here," Adrian continued. "You'll rest, you'll heal, and you will not leave this room without permission." Lena swallowed hard. "So I'm a prisoner?" "No," he said, turning toward the door. "You're my responsibility." The lock clicked softly as he left. And in the silence that followed, Lena realized the most terrifying part wasn't the danger outside these walls. It was the man who believed keeping her meant saving her. Time stopped meaning anything after that. Day blurred into night, marked only by the slow shift of light behind heavy curtains and the quiet, efficient arrivals of people who never met her eyes. A woman brought food, warm, fragrant, plated like a restaurant meal. Another checked her bandages, adjusted her medication, spoke only when spoken to. They were ghosts, loyal, silent. Lena healed inside a palace. Soft carpets muted every step. The bathroom attached to her room was marble and glass, stocked with towels thicker than anything she'd ever owned. Designer clothes appeared in the closet in her size. Tags removed, choices made for her. Everything she needed, except freedom. Her phone never returned. The windows didn't open. The door stayed locked unless Adrian came himself. And he did come, not often, never unpredictably. When he entered, the room seemed to recalibrate around him. He would sit in the leather chair, never on the bed, never too close, always watching, always measuring. "You're healing well," he said one evening, eyes flicking briefly to her bandages. "Congratulations," Lena replied. "You kidnapped a fast healer." A ghost of a smile touched his mouth, gone just as quickly. "You're not kidnapped," Adrian said. "You're protected." "Funny," she shot back. "Most protection doesn't come with locked doors." He didn't argue. Instead, he said, "You can't leave because the people who want you dead don't care where you run." That chilled her more than the room ever could. "Why would anyone want me dead?" she demanded. Adrian's jaw tightened, just once. "Because you saw something you weren't meant to." "That's it?" she asked bitterly. "Wrong place, wrong time, and now my life's over?" "No," he said quietly. "It's preserved." The words sat heavy between them. Lena began to pace when she could, mapping the limits of her confinement. Bedroom, bathroom, a narrow sitting area beyond the door, still guarded, always guarded. At night, when sleep refused to come, she listened. Footsteps, murmured voices, the distant hum of a city she was no longer part of. Safety wrapped around her like velvet-lined steel. And the worst part, the part she didn't want to admit even to herself, was that nothing bad happened to her here. No one raised a hand, no one yelled, no one hurt her. Adrian made sure of it, which made the question burn deeper every day she stayed. If this was a cage, why did it feel like survival? Days, or maybe weeks, passed. Time became meaningless in the golden cage. Lena's body healed faster than her questions did. Every morning brought the same ritual. Food placed just within reach, bandages checked, medication offered. The silence between tasks stretched longer than ever, heavy with unspoken truths. Finally, she spoke. "Why me?" Her voice was small but steady, echoing in the vast room. "Why not someone else?" Adrian entered quietly, as if he had anticipated the question. His dark eyes didn't waver. They held hers with unrelenting intensity. "You were in the wrong place at the wrong time," he said calmly. "But it wasn't random. You saw something. Dangerous." "Dangerous?" Lena repeated, frustration creeping in. "I was taking pictures for my portfolio." He didn't smile. "Not anymore." She swallowed, the weight of the words pressing on her chest. "Who are they? Who wants me dead?" Adrian's jaw tightened. A shadow passed over his face. Brief, almost imperceptible. "People who won't hesitate to kill. People I can't control." Lena's stomach twisted. "And you can." "I try," he said simply. "But you're not safe because I'm kind. You're safe because I have no choice." Her pulse quickened. "No choice? You mean you want me alive?" "Yes," Adrian said, voice low. "But it's more than that. I have to keep you alive. If you leave, if anyone outside these walls touches you, you won't survive." Her hands clenched into fists. "So I'm a hostage? Asset?" "You're a liability," he admitted bluntly. "And I don't tolerate liabilities." The words stung sharper than any wound. Yet beneath his authority, beneath the danger and the steel in his voice, there was something else. Something she couldn't name. A flicker, vulnerability hidden beneath the mask of control. She realized, with a sinking heart, that she was dependent, not just on his protection, but on his silence, his decisions, his presence. And that terrified her even more than the threats outside. "You're not going to tell me everything," Lena said bitterly. "You want me scared, controlled, quiet." Adrian's gaze softened for a heartbeat. "I tell you only what you need to survive." "You think that's enough," she shot back. "It is," he said, turning toward the door. "For now." The click of the lock echoed in her ears after he left. Alone again, Lena sank onto the bed, mind racing. The cage was gilded. The golden walls promised safety, but every shadow hinted at secrets she might never fully understand. And the truth was, she hated and feared him, and she was drawn to him in ways that scared her more than any gun ever could. Would you want the truth, even if it meant risking your life? Or is ignorance sometimes safer? Lena began noticing the subtle ways Adrian controlled her world. The door never opened unless he permitted it. The meals arrived without choice, though always exquisite. Her phone stayed silent, untouched. Every act was wrapped in care, but every act reminded her of her confinement. "You can't leave," he said one evening, eyes dark and unyielding. "Not until I'm certain you're safe." "I'm not your responsibility," Lena snapped, frustration boiling over. "I don't belong in this gilded prison." Adrian's jaw tightened. He didn't yell, he didn't raise a hand. Instead, he stepped closer, close enough for her to notice the faint scent of his cologne, the warmth of his presence. "You are my responsibility," he said evenly, "because if anyone touches you outside these walls, you die." Her pulse hammered in her ears. "You mean you own me?" He tilted his head slightly, considering her words. "I don't own you, I protect you, but your life is tied to my decisions. That is the reality." Lena's chest tightened. She wanted to hate him, to reject him, to scream at the unfairness, and yet she couldn't. Every time she looked at him, every time she remembered that underground garage, she understood the truth of his words. "You're more than a prisoner," Adrian continued, voice dropping low, almost intimate. "You're a liability, and I don't tolerate liabilities." The words cut deep, but the way he said them, the calm precision, the undertone of concern, left her disoriented. Alone later, she pressed her forehead to the window, staring at the city lights that felt both distant and unreachable. The cage was real, undeniable, but the cage was also safety. And the lines between protection and possession blurred until she couldn't tell which one frightened her more. Every knock at the door, every step in the hallway reminded her of Adrian's control. Yet the knowledge that he had her alive, that he had saved her from death she didn't even understand, kept her tethered. And somewhere deep down, the realization stirred. Fear, desire, and dependence were entwined, making the man she hated the same man she couldn't stop thinking about. Would you trust someone who saves your life, but controls every choice you make? The longer Lena stayed, the more she began to notice him. Not the mafia boss whispered about in fear, not the man whose name carried power and blood, but the man behind the mask. Adrian Russo never smiled often, but sometimes, when he thought no one was watching, the tension in his shoulders eased. Sometimes, when she reached for water or medicine, he lingered slightly longer than necessary, and she caught a flicker of something human. One evening, she dared to speak first. "You ever get tired of this?" she asked quietly, nodding to the empty, silent room around them. "The planning, the power, the everything." Adrian paused. His dark eyes held hers longer than usual, and she saw a shadow of the boy who had clawed his way to the top, alone, haunted, burdened. Every day, he admitted, voice low, but no one ever asked the questions. They only see results, strength, authority. Lena swallowed. The man she feared so much was tired, vulnerable, human. "You don't have to carry it all alone," she whispered, barely daring to hope. He looked at her, the barest hint of surprise crossing his face. "I don't usually trust anyone with this," he said. "But you're different. You see me, not the boss, not the fear." She wanted to argue, to remind him she had no choice here, that she was trapped. but a strange warmth settled in her chest. For the first time, the man who had terrified her felt reachable. For days after, their interactions changed. He brought her books she liked, allowed her to linger longer on the balcony under careful watch, even asked her opinion on trivial things, a rare smile tugging at his lips. And Lena noticed herself softening too. The walls she had built against him, against fear, against desire, began to crack. He didn't rescue her from danger because he had to anymore. He was beginning to rely on her presence as much as she relied on his protection. A dangerous thought whispered in her mind. Maybe she was the one saving him, in a way. Can someone who controls your life still earn your trust and affection? Lena's world had shifted. The gilded cage still held her, but the sharp edges no longer cut as sharply. She was stronger now, physically, mentally, emotionally. Every day she pushed herself further, testing limits Adrian had set, learning when he would intervene and when he would let her decide. She explored the apartment, tracing the corridors she had once feared. She memorized the stairways, the security systems, the small moments when the staff looked away. The once overbearing walls of control had become a map, and she was learning to navigate it. Conversations with Adrian changed too. They were no longer merely demands and warnings. They began to hold nuance, subtle negotiations. "Do you always have to hover when I step onto the balcony?" she asked one evening, voice teasing but steady. He tilted his head, observing her. "I watch because I care," he said. "Because the world outside these walls doesn't forgive mistakes." "Maybe I can make my own choices," she countered. For the first time, he didn't argue. Instead, he studied her, measuring. And then, after a long moment, he nodded. "Fine. But remember, consequences follow decisions." Lena's heart raced, not from fear, but from exhilaration. A sense of agency flowed through her veins, a new power she hadn't felt in months. She could act, she could decide, she could push boundaries and know she survived them. And in the quiet moments, when Adrian lingered just outside her door, watching, listening, she realized the power dynamic had shifted subtly, dangerously. She wasn't merely surviving anymore, she was engaging with him, engaging with the world he had kept her from, engaging with herself. She leaned against the marble counter in the kitchen, arms crossed, meeting his gaze across the room. "I'm not afraid anymore," she said softly. Adrian's lips pressed into a thin line. Not approval, not anger, recognition, respect. And perhaps something more. The balance had changed. The cage was still golden, but she was no longer a passive occupant. How do you handle someone who saved your life but still holds power over you? Do you resist, negotiate, or surrender? The night everything ended, Adrian didn't say goodbye. He stood by the window, suit jacket discarded, sleeves rolled to his forearms, the uniform of a man preparing for war, not conversation. "You'll stay inside tonight," he said quietly. Lena felt it immediately. The shift, the finality. "This is about the traitor," she said. Adrian turned. His eyes were dark, resolved. "It ends tonight." She stepped closer, heart pounding. "And if it doesn't, it will." There was no bravado in his voice, only certainty. The hours that followed were the longest of her life. She waited in silence while the city beyond the glass burned with movement she couldn't see. Every sound felt amplified. Every minute stretched thin. Then, footsteps. Adrian returned just before dawn. There was blood on his cuff. Not much, but enough. "It's over," he said simply. "The man who marked you, the family that threatened you, they're gone, permanently." Lena searched his face. "A war?" He shook his head once. "A message." For the first time since the garage, the fear eased in her chest. The threat that justified her cage was gone. And Adrian knew it. So did she. That morning, Adrian did something he had never done before. He unlocked the door and left it open. "You're free to go," he said. The words stunned her more than any gunshot ever could. "No conditions," he continued. "No guards. No tracking. I'll have a car take you anywhere you want." Lena stared at the open doorway. This was it, the test. Her old life waited out there. Small apartment, struggling career, safety bought with ignorance. Behind her stood danger, power, darkness. and a man who had saved her life without asking for love in return. "You won't stop me?" she asked. Adrian's voice was low, controlled, broken. "No." She took a step toward the door, then stopped, because for the first time, leaving felt like loss. Lena turned back. "I don't want protection," she said. "I want honesty, partnership, choice." Adrian's breath hitched, just once. "This world will never be safe," he warned. "I know," she replied. "But it's honest, and so are you." She stepped closer, not trapped, not owned, choosing. "If I stay," she said, "it's because I want you, not because I need you." Adrian's voice dropped. "And if I let you stay, it's because I love you, not because I control you." The kiss that followed wasn't desperate, it was earned. Two damaged souls standing in the dark, together. Lena never returned to Harbor Heights. She built a new life, one where danger was acknowledged, not hidden, where love wasn't soft but fierce, where power was shared. Adrian remained a king in a brutal world, but for her, he became something else. A partner, a protector by choice, not possession. A man who learned that love wasn't weakness, it was sanctuary. And when Lena teased him now, softly, knowingly, he only smiled. Because this time, she knew exactly who he was. And she stayed anyway. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support helps me bring you even more emotional, heartwarming stories filled with love, tension, and unforgettable moments. Stay tuned. More beautiful stories are on the way.